So I wanted to make a video about the sub 5 theory. If you know the black pill community and you've been there for a while, you've probably heard about this expression of the sub 5 theory, which basically means that if you're a dude and you look like you're less than a 5 out of 10, you're pretty much cooked. At least that is what I'm understanding from what I see people saying online, and I kind of disagree with this take. I mean, I do agree with a lot of black pill stuff, but this one, in my opinion, is not. It's not that it's not true. I mean, of course, you're unattractive if you're a sub 5. I mean, that's why the scaling is made this way, because if you're a 5, you're just normal, or you're like neutral. If you're a sub 5, you're unattractive, and if you're over a 5, you're like attractive. But in my opinion, this is kind of messed up because people think that, well, first of all, there is the bias of being black pilled, where you think a bit too much about looks. And I can understand because I too do think that looks matter way more than most people commonly believe. But I also think there is some exaggeration when you say that sub 5 is cooked, or like sub 5 is ugly, or even worse, I saw someone say the other day that a sub 5 is a subhuman look. And I mean, it's kind of like, no, it's not. Because according to these black pill incels, if you're a sub 5, you're very much ugly. And if we consider what women say, for women, like 80% of men are sub 5s. So, I mean, are you really that ugly? Or are you really like looked? Or are you really, as this guy would say, subhuman looking? In my opinion, it seems like it's quite exaggerated, and we are going to see why it's quite exaggerated today. Because if you think about it, 30% of Gen Z young men are dating currently, and only the top 20% are considered to be at least neutral by women. So this means that approximately 10% are considered attractive, 10% are considered like neutral, and 10% would be considered unattractive. And these people are dating, and the 70 other percent would be not dating currently. So there is an issue with that. Like, how can you say someone is like subhuman looking or completely cooked and will never fool any girl or whatever, when the statistics say otherwise? So that's why I made this simple theory, this readjustment, you could say so, where instead of saying sub 5, I just say sub 3. Because in my opinion, if you're a sub 3, you're under the average guy. Like, the average guy is considered 3 or 4 by a woman. So if you're a sub 3, you're considered ugly by a woman, because you're considered like uglier than 50% of men, maybe even than 60 or 70% of men. So there is that. You can say someone that is a 1 or a 2, that he's ugly and unattractive because he's like in the bottom, 10, 20, 30%. So yeah, you can say they are ugly, but I drew the line there because you can say the same thing about a 3 or a 4, because a 3 is like maybe in the bottom 40%, and a 4 is gonna be like, I don't know, maybe in the top 50 or even in the top 40% of men, according to women. So it's kind of strange to say that someone has no chance when they are already more attractive than 50% of the population, you know? And that is kind of what I don't like with these studies or this data. It's that it looks like you're unattractive because you are rated as unattractive, but in reality you are more attractive than the majority of the population, or at least you're like normal, you know? You're in the midway, like not average, because average is a different thing, but you're like the median person. If you're a 3.5, you're like on the median. You're not average, but you're like in the 50%. Now another thing I wanted to say also is that even if you are unattractive, like if you're a sub 5 but not a sub 3, you can still like looks match and become way more attractive. Well, not way more, but at least a little bit more. And if you like, imagine you're a 4 and you start looks maxing, and you end up being like, after maybe 2 years, you end up being like a 6. Like you've come from a way where you're considered unattractive and you became attractive. And a majority of men are not trying to make consistent efforts into trying to look as good as possible. So yeah, even if you start as a 3 or a 4, you can become a 5 or a 6 in pretty much no time. I mean, you can just gain a point from doing the basics, like not going to sleep at 3 a.m., going outside, and having a nice haircut, and maybe getting a beard. I don't know if you can grow a beard, at least. So yeah, you can just gain a point pretty quickly like that. And with consistent efforts for like a year or two, going to the gym and all that stuff, you can improve a bit more and gain another point maybe. So if we imagine that the average guy can gain 2 points, it means that a 4 out of 10 who's unattractive can become attractive after 2 years of efforts. So yeah, that's why I disagree with the sub 5 theory and I call it the sub 3 theory, because if you're a sub 3, I mean, you have a lot more to gain to get from a sub 3 to a sub 5 than going from a sub 5 to like a 6, but it's way more difficult because mentally you've been put aside, you've been disrespected, you've had a lot of trauma, I think. If you grew up and you were like the fat child or the ugly guy or whatever, I think it's gonna be much more difficult because of your experience in the past and also because of your genetics. But yeah, for the people that are above that, like 3 or 4s, I do not think it's time to like give up and try to, I don't know. I don't think anyone should give up, to be honest, but I think that it's very complicated for someone that is a sub 3 become a sub 5, at least mentally, not physically. I think it could be done in not a lot of time, but mentally it should be difficult for them. But for a sub 5, I think that you had an average life. It's not like you had the worst trauma ever. Maybe you've been disrespected a few times, but it probably wasn't even because of your physique or whatever. It probably was because of, I don't know, isolation or whatever. But I do not think that myself as a sub 5 for a majority of my life, I had a very difficult life just because I was a sub 5. I mean, yes, if you're comparing yourself to the chads on the internet, of course you have a difficult life, but if you look around you, it's really not that bad. Also, I would like to just mention that quickly, that I know everyone will not gain 2 points by looks maxing. Some people will like get 1 point and other will get like plus 4 points. But I mean, it's a probability game. Like on average, people will get like 1.5 to 2.5 points by looks maxing. So yeah, I know that, but in the majority of cases, you will get 2 points by doing consistent efforts for a few months or a few years. One last point I wanted to make is, why did we start hearing this sub 5 theory? I think because sub 5 is like some kind of common insult. Like, somebody says you're a sub 5, it looks like you're under average, It looks like you're in the bottom 50% when you say sub 5. Even though it's not the truth, it looks like that. And also, I think that a lot of people that promote the sub 5 theory in reality are sub 3s. because I've seen quite some videos about some people saying, yeah, I'm a sub 5 and I'm trying to, blah blah blah. But what really happened is that they are not sub 5, they are like 2.5s or things like that, you know? They're not like sub 5 like the regular sub 5, they're more like sub 3s. And because of their ego, they think they are a sub 5, but really they are not. It's kind of the same thing as a self-diagnosed psychopath, you know? It's the same thing. Like people are self-diagnosing and they think, oh yeah, I'm a sub 5, but in reality they are way worse than they are. I try to be humble when I say I'm a 5 in reality, but I'm not even sure about that. Maybe I'm a 4 or 4.5, or maybe I'm a 6 and I'm underestimating myself, but I think I'm around that at least. But some people really do quite say they're average, but they are on the bottom 25% of men, and they will try to make the others feel uncomfortable for being just average. But really, the issue is just that they are under the average. And I also think that it's an enormous scope to say, oh yeah, but I'm a sub 5, so I just won't do it, you know? Like I'm unattractive and it's over for me. I think it's a gigantic cope just to quit the field of aestheticism, which could be alright if you have like something else to compensate. Like, I don't know, if you're pretty rich, like you're an 8 of, imagine you're like a 4 or a 3 physically, but you're like an 8 in terms of richness, then I would think it would be okay because like you've got the 6 figures and you don't really have a beautiful face, but you can compensate one with the other. So it's quite alright if it's like that, but I mean in most cases it's not. A lot of these people saying, oh yeah, but I'm a sub 5, it's over for me, they're just copying one way or another. So yeah, tell me what you think about the sub 3 theory within the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.